The scene is intentionally sparse, drawing focus not to the surroundings, but to the space between two souls. Imagine a study, late in the evening, the only light coming from a single, amber-toned lamp that pools on the rich wood of a heavy desk. The air is still. The father, a man whose age is visible not in frailty but in the deep, settled calm of his eyes, gestures to a chair. His voice when he speaks is not loud, but it fills the room entirely. It is a voice accustomed to being heard, not because it demands attention, but because it offers a profound and rare substance, undiluted truth. Come, sit with me. The hour is late, and the world outside has finally grown quiet enough for us to hear the things that truly matter. I have not brought you here for a lecture, nor to dispense easy advice that costs me nothing and profits you little. I have brought you here because a season has turned in the unseen world. A great and ancient gear has clicked into place, and its movement concerns you directly. I have brought you here tonight to hand you a key to understanding the sacred architecture of your own life. Before we speak of the future, we must first have the courage to excavate the past, and more importantly, the present feeling that has been the constant, quiet companion of your journey. Let us call it the sacred Ak. It is that feeling you've known for as long as you can remember, the one you have perhaps never dared to name. It is the feeling of being a foreigner in your own homeland, of knowing the language and customs, but sensing that your true citizenship lies elsewhere. It's the quiet dissonance of standing in a room full of laughter, a part of the celebration, yet feeling an unshakable solitude, as if you are observing it all from behind a pane of invisible glass. You are present, but you are not of it. The world, in its desperate need for categorization, has tried to label this feeling for you. A therapist might call it generalized anxiety or existential dread. A friend might call it discontentment. A pastor might even misinterpret it as a lack of faith or gratitude. They are all mistaken. They are attempting to diagnose a spiritual condition with a psychological tool. They are trying to medicate a symptom whose purpose is not to be silenced, but to be understood. My child, that ache is not a sign of your brokenness. It is the undeniable proof of your divine origin. It is a spiritual homesickness. It is the homing beacon, installed in your soul by the Creator Himself, pinging a constant signal back to a reality your heart remembers but your mind has been trained to forget. It is the most reliable compass you own, and it has been faithfully pointing north your entire life, even as you've been told to travel in every other direction. I remember this ache as if it were yesterday. I was a young man, full of ambition, sitting in a boardroom high above the city. I had achieved everything I had set out to achieve. The suit was expensive, the title was impressive, the future was a straight, ascending line on a chart. We were celebrating a major victory, a deal that had taken months of relentless work. Champagne was poured, backs were slapped, voices were loud with triumph, and in the midst of it all, I felt a void so vast and so cold it threatened to swallow me whole. I looked at the faces around me, saw their genuine happiness, and I felt like an anthropologist studying a foreign tribe. I could mimic their rituals. I could speak their language of profit and loss. But their joy was utterly alien to me. My spirit was starving at a banquet. That night I went home, and for the first time I didn't try to reason the feeling away. I let it speak, and it whispered a devastating, liberating truth. This is a good life, but it is not your life. That is the sacred Ash. It is the friction between the life you are living and the one you were created for. It is the protest of your spirit against a reality that is too small for it. It is the first and most crucial sign that you have been marked for something more. And the change you are feeling now, that recent intensification of this feeling, that sense of urgency and profound restlessness, that is the sound of the homing beacon growing louder. It is the signal that the ship has finally come for you. This brings us to the present moment, this specific intersection of time and eternity. In the ancient world, they understood two kinds of time. There was Chronos, chronological, quantitative, clock, and calendar time. It is the time of meetings, deadlines, and birthdays. It is sequential and predictable. But there was another time, Kairos. This is qualitative time. It is God's appointed, opportune time. It is the right moment, the supreme moment, a moment pregnant with eternal significance. Chronos is a river flowing steadily. Kairos is a lightning strike that illuminates the entire landscape in a single, brilliant flash. You, my child, have just entered a Kairos moment. This is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual reality. A divine appointment, set for you before your birth, has now come due. This is why your internal world feels so chaotic. A Kairos event is inherently disruptive to the flow of Chronos. It is an invasion of the eternal into the temporal. The symptoms are unmistakable. You feel a profound dissatisfaction with things that once brought you peace. Old habits, old relationships, old ways of thinking no longer fit. They feel like clothing you have suddenly outgrown. You may be experiencing vivid, meaningful dreams. You may have moments of startling clarity that cut through the fog of your everyday life, followed by periods of deep confusion. You feel a relentless sense of urgency, a feeling that you must do something, even if you don't know what island. The world would call this a crisis, a breakdown. I am telling you, it is a breakthrough. It is the painful but necessary process of a pupa breaking out of its chrysalis. The old structure must be shattered for the new creation to emerge. I had my own Kairos. It wasn't in a boardroom. It was years later, in a moment of profound personal failure. Everything I had built in my own strength had crumbled into dust. I was sitting alone, the taste of ash in my mouth, stripped of my pride, my reputation, my self-reliance. It was in that place of absolute zero, in that crushing defeat, that the lightning struck. In my emptiness, there was finally room for God to enter. He didn't come with condemnation. He came with a question that reframed my entire existence. Are you finally done trying to save yourself? Good. Now my real work in you can begin. That failure was not a detour. It was the destination. It was the entry point into my true calling. This is what is happening to you now, a great shattering and a great remaking. Do not be afraid of the disorientation. It is the sign that your inner compass is being remagnetized to its true north. You are being aligned with the purpose for which you were created. And this purpose is precisely why your life has been a battlefield. We must speak of this with absolute clarity. This is not a story of a difficult childhood or a string of bad luck. That is the profane narrative. The sacred narrative is this. You have been the subject of a relentless, strategic, and lifelong military campaign waged by an enemy who saw your destiny long before you did. Imagine a king, a rightful heir to a vast and wonderful kingdom, who was born in exile. And imagine a usurper, a dark lord who currently occupies the throne, who knows of the prophecy that this heir will one day return and reclaim his birthright. What does the usurper do? He cannot annul the prophecy. He cannot undo the royal bloodline. So, he dispatches his most cunning assassins, not to kill the heir outright, for that might create a martyr and hasten the prophecy, but to wound, to demoralize, to cripple the heir's spirit so that he never believes he is royalty and never even attempts to claim his throne. You are that heir. Your past has been filled with these assassins. There was the assassin of shame. He came to you in your most vulnerable moments, in your failures and mistakes. He whispered that your flaws were not just actions, but your identity. He worked tirelessly to weave a cloak of unworthiness around you, hoping you would wear it for so long you would forget the royal robes that are your birthright. He wanted you so ashamed of your past that you would never have the confidence to step into your future. Then there was the assassin of fear. He was dispatched every time you stood on the edge of a bold decision. He painted vivid pictures of failure, of rejection, of loss. He sought to shrink the boundaries of your world, to keep you in a small, predictable, and powerless cage, convincing you that the cage was for your own safety. He wanted to paralyze you with what-ifs, so you would never take the leap of faith required to live your calling. And the assassin of comparison. He was one of the most effective. He sat on your shoulder and forced you to look at the lives of others, their seemingly effortless successes, their perfect families, their clear paths. He then held up their curated highlight reels against your unedited, behind-the-scenes struggles. His goal was to make you feel deficient, behind, and fundamentally lacking, so that you would despise your own unique path and waste your energy trying to imitate someone else's. Do not forget the assassin of distraction. In an age of endless noise, he is the enemy's masterstroke. He came to you with trivialities, with endless streams of information, with meaningless urgencies and manufactured dramas. His mission was simple: to keep you so occupied with the shallow that you would never have the silence required to explore the deep. He sought to fill every empty space in your life with noise, knowing that the voice of God is most often heard in the stillness. These were not random forces. They were a coordinated assault against your throne. The usurper's greatest fear is not your strength, but your revelation. He is terrified of the moment you finally realize who you are. He knows that a single heir who awakens to their true identity is more powerful than all of his armies of shadows. The fact that you have survived this onslaught, that you are sitting here with me tonight, that your sacred Akh is intact and your spirit is stirring, this is a miracle of the highest order. It means that every one of his assassins has failed. Your past was not a prison. It was a brutal, merciless, and ultimately successful training ground for royalty. It taught you to see in the dark. It taught you to discern truth from deception. It taught you to find your strength not in your circumstances, but in your character. It stripped you of every false reliance until the only thing you had left to stand on was the unshakable ground of your own divine identity. And now that you understand the war that has been waged for you and the victory that your survival represents, we are ready for the next step. We must begin to speak of the kingdom you are called to inherit, the nature of the authority you are destined to wield, and the profound cost of the crown you are being asked to wear. The Father lets the silence in the room breathe, allowing the immense weight of the truth of a life lived not as a victim, but as the target of a cosmic war to settle deep into his child's spirit. He watches with profound compassion as the old narratives of shame and confusion begin to crumble, replaced by the first tentative light of a terrifying and magnificent new reality. He leans forward again, his posture shifting from one of revelation to one of impartation. The time for explaining the past is over. The time for defining the future has begun. You have absorbed this truth, and I can see it in your eyes. The haunted look of the exile is beginning to fade, and in its place, I see the flickering flame of the warrior, heir. You now understand that your survival was not a matter of chance, but an act of divine preservation. You see your history not as a disqualification, but as your primary qualification. This is the bedrock. On this foundation, and only on this foundation, can we build. So, having understood the war that has been waged for you, we must now turn our attention from the defensive to the proactive. We must turn from the subject of survival to the subject of inheritance. In my final words to you before this pause, I spoke of three things: the kingdom you are called to inherit, the authority you are destined to wield, and the profound cost of the crown you are being asked to wear. These are not three separate concepts, but three facets of the same diamond. Let us examine them, one by one. First, let us speak of your kingdom. When you hear that word, I want you to immediately banish every image of castles, thrones, and geographic territories that comes to mind. That is the language of the world, the language of the usurper. In the economy of heaven, a kingdom is not a place you own, it is a domain you influence. It is the specific sphere of reality where your unique, God-given presence is designed to bring the order, the light, and the life of heaven to bear on the chaos, the darkness, and the death of this world. Your kingdom is the territory where what is broken in the world intersects with what is whole in you. For one person, the kingdom might be the classroom. It is the sphere of young, impressionable minds, where their presence brings not just knowledge but safety, identity, and inspiration. They are warring against the spirits of ignorance and hopelessness. For another, the kingdom is the sterile, white-walled hospital room. It is the domain of sickness and fear, where their anointed hands and comforting words bring not just medical care, but a tangible peace that surpasses all understanding. They are warring against the spirits of infirmity and despair. For an artist, the kingdom is the blank canvas, the empty page, the unsculpted block of clay. It is the domain of a culture starved for beauty and truth, where their work becomes a conduit for transcendence, reminding people of a deeper reality they have forgotten. They are warring against the spirits of cynicism and nihilism. For a business leader, the kingdom is the culture of their company. It is the sphere of commerce, where their integrity, their generosity, and their commitment to human dignity can create an ecosystem of flourishing in a world that so often commodifies people. They are warring against the spirits of greed and exploitation. Your kingdom is your unique assignment. It is the specific patch of ground you were created to cultivate. And here is the most crucial, counterintuitive truth. You do not build your kingdom through ambition, hustle, or strategic planning. You receive it as an inheritance. It is discovered through obedience, not constructed by ego. The world, the usurper's system, tells you to climb, to strive, to compete, to build your empire brick by bloody brick. That is the way of force, control, and imitation. The way of the air is entirely different. It is the way of alignment, authenticity, and service. You find your kingdom not by looking for a throne to sit on, but by looking for feet to wash. Let me tell you where I went wrong. After my own Kairos moment, that shattering in the place of my failure, I was filled with a new and potent fire. I finally understood my purpose. And what did I do? I immediately fell back into the old paradigm. I took the new vision God had given me and tried to build it with the usurper's tools. I tried to force it into existence. I drew up 5-year plans. I networked. I tried to market the anointing, to create an organization that would be impressive and influential. I was trying to build a kingdom for God, but I was using my own strength and my own ego as the architect. And it failed. It failed spectacularly. Every door I tried to force locked. Every person I tried to impress walked away. Every plan I meticulously crafted fell apart. It was a second, more subtle, and perhaps more painful shattering. I was brought to my knees again, and in that place of renewed surrender, God spoke to me once more. He said, "I have not called you to build a great thing for me. I have called you to let me do a great thing through you. Stop building, start stewarding." He showed me that my kingdom at that time was not a global ministry, but a conversation with a single broken man at a coffee shop. It was not a best-selling book, but an anonymous letter of encouragement to a struggling pastor. It was not a large stage, but the small hidden patch of ground of my own family, my own neighborhood. He taught me that if I was faithful to cultivate the small territory he had given me, he would be the one to expand its borders. Your kingdom is found in the next small act of loving obedience. Your empire is the size of your next yes to God. Be faithful there, and the inheritance will unfold before you, not as a conquest, but as a sunrise. This leads us directly to the nature of the authority you are destined to wield. For to reign in a kingdom, one must have authority. And just as we redefined kingdom, we must now completely dismantle and rebuild your understanding of authority. The world's authority is positional. It is a title on a door, the number of people who report to you, the balance in your bank account. It is external, transactional, and fragile. It can be given, and it can be taken away in an instant. It is, ultimately, based on power over others. Kingdom authority is the precise opposite. It is not positional, it is moral. It is not external, it is internal. It is not fragile, it is eternal. It is based not on power over others, but on the power of God flowing through you for others. It is the authority of character earned in the secret, hidden fires of trial and temptation. It cannot be given to you by any man, and it cannot be taken from you by any circumstance. The source of this authority is singular, absolute alignment with the king. Think of an ambassador to a foreign country. An ambassador, in and of themselves, has no special power. They are a private citizen, but when they speak, they can speak with the full weight and power of the government they represent, as long as they are speaking the will of that government. The moment they begin to offer their own opinions or pursue their own agenda, they are no longer an ambassador. Their authority vanishes. They are speaking for themselves. So it is with us. Your spiritual authority is directly proportional to your surrender. It is a byproduct of your alignment. The more of you there is in the equation, your ego, your ambition, your agenda, the less of his authority can flow through you. This is why the path to true authority is a path of constant daily death to self. It is the terrifying, liberating process of vacating the throne of your own heart so that the true king can be seated there. And how is this authority exercised? Not as the world exercises it. It is not exercised through force, manipulation, or loud commands. Kingdom authority is exercised in three primary ways. First, through presence. A person walking in true authority carries a spiritual gravitas. When they enter a room, the very atmosphere recalibrates around them. Their settled peace has the power to silence a spirit of anxiety. Their quiet integrity can make a spirit of deceit profoundly uncomfortable. They don't have to say a thing. Their presence is a form of spiritual legislation. It announces that a different government, a different set of rules, is now in effect. You are called to cultivate a presence that makes demons tremble and broken hearts feel safe. Second, through words. As an heir to the kingdom, your words are no longer your own. They cease to be merely communicative and become creative or destructive. You must understand this. The idle complaint, the cynical remark, the word of gossip, the negative pronouncement over yourself or another, these are no longer harmless expressions. They are acts of spiritual abdication. They are you, an ambassador of heaven, using your delegated authority to agree with the usurper's agenda of death and decay. You are literally legislating against your own kingdom. Conversely, a word of blessing spoken over a struggling person, a declaration of truth in the face of a lie, a word of hope whispered into a situation of despair, these are not positive thinking. These are royal decrees. They are you, exercising your authority to release the creative power of the king into a situation. You must begin to weigh your words as if they were gold, for they are the very currency of your authority. Third, and most paradoxically, authority is exercised through service. This is the great upside-down logic of the kingdom. The usurper system says, rule by being served. The kingdom says, rule by serving. The way up is down. The way to lead is to wash feet. The way to be great is to become the servant of all. Jesus, the King of all kings, demonstrated this perfectly. His moments of greatest authority were his moments of greatest service, washing his disciples' feet, healing the sick, forgiving his enemies, and ultimately pouring out his life on a cross. Your authority will increase not by the number of people who serve you, but by the depth and authenticity with which you serve others, expecting nothing in return. And this brings us, inevitably, to the final facet of this diamond. It brings us to the throne and to the crown you are being asked to wear. And when you picture this crown, I do not want you to see gold or jewels or earthly splendor. The crown of a true heir, the crown of kingdom authority, is, and has always been, a crown of thorns. It is beautiful, yes, but it is heavy, and it will cost you everything. It is a crown that is plated with the thorns of perpetual misunderstanding. To walk this path is to commit to being seen as a fool by the world. It is to have your motives constantly questioned and your sanity doubted. It is a crown that is heavy with the thorns of radical obedience. It will cost you your own meticulously crafted plans, your own cherished ambitions, your own logical sense of timing. It requires a daily, hourly, moment-by-moment surrender of your will to a will that is higher, wiser, and infinitely more loving, but often inscrutable. The throne of your heart is not a democracy, it is a monarchy. and it is not big enough for two. Finally, it is a crown that is drenched in the thorns of sacrificial love. It will require you to love the unlovable, to forgive the unforgivable, to pour out your life, your energy, and your heart for people who may never thank you, who may even betray you. It is the cost of bearing the heart of the King you represent. It is a glorious, painful, and profoundly beautiful weight. You now see the shape of your inheritance, a kingdom of influence, an authority born of surrender, and a crown of sacrificial love. You see the what. But seeing the destination on a map is not the same as making the journey. Understanding is not the same as embodiment. To truly possess this inheritance, to wear this crown without being crushed by it, you must learn the daily, moment-by-moment practices of the kingdom. You must learn the disciplines of the heart that transform a fearful, wounded exile into a confident, reigning heir. And that is where we must go next. We must speak of the rigorous, the practical, and the life-altering art of spiritual stewardship. Second, through words. As an heir to the kingdom, your words are no longer your own. They cease to be merely communicative and become creative or destructive. You must understand this. The idle complaint, the cynical remark, the word of gossip, the negative pronouncement over yourself or another, these are no longer harmless expressions. They are acts of spiritual abdication. They are you, an ambassador of heaven, using your delegated authority to agree with the usurper's agenda of death and decay. You are literally legislating against your own kingdom. Conversely, a word of blessing spoken over a struggling person, a declaration of truth in the face of a lie, a word of hope whispered into a situation of despair, these are not positive thinking. These are royal decrees. They are you, exercising your authority to release the creative power of the King into a situation. You must begin to weigh your words as if they were gold, for they are the very currency of your authority. Third, and most paradoxically, authority is exercised through service. This is the great upside-down logic of the kingdom. The usurper's system says, rule by being served. The kingdom says, rule by serving. The way up is down. The way to lead is to wash feet. The way to be great is to become the servant of all. Jesus, the King of all kings, demonstrated this perfectly. His moments of greatest authority were his moments of greatest service, washing his disciples' feet, healing the sick, forgiving his enemies, and ultimately pouring out his life on a cross. Your authority will increase not by the number of people who serve you, but by the depth and authenticity with which you serve others, expecting nothing in return. And this brings us, inevitably, to the final facet of this diamond. It brings us to the throne and to the crown you are being asked to wear. And when you picture this crown, I do not want you to see gold or jewels or earthly splendor. The crown of a true heir, the crown of kingdom authority, is, and has always been, a crown of thorns. It is beautiful, yes, but it is heavy, and it will cost you everything. It is a crown that is plaited with the thorns of perpetual misunderstanding. To walk this path is to commit to being seen as a fool by the world. It is to have your motives constantly questioned and your sanity doubted. It is a crown that is heavy with the thorns of radical obedience. It will cost you your own meticulously crafted plans, your own cherished ambitions, your own logical sense of timing. It requires a daily, hourly, moment-by-moment surrender of your will to a will that is higher, wiser, and infinitely more loving, but often inscrutable. The throne of your heart is not a democracy, it is a monarchy, and it is not big enough for two. Finally, it is a crown that is drenched in the thorns of sacrificial love. It will require you to love the unlovable, to forgive the unforgivable, to pour out your life, your energy, and your heart for people who may never thank you, who may even betray you. It is the cost of bearing the heart of the King you represent. It is a glorious, painful, and profoundly beautiful weight. You now see the shape of your inheritance, a kingdom of influence, an authority born of surrender, and a crown of sacrificial love. You see the what. But seeing the destination on a map is not the same as making the journey. Understanding is not the same as embodiment. To truly possess this inheritance, to wear this crown without being crushed by it, you must learn the daily, moment-by-moment practices of the kingdom. You must learn the disciplines of the heart that transform a fearful, wounded exile into a confident, reigning heir. And that is where we must go next. We must speak of the rigorous, the practical, and the life-altering art of spiritual stewardship. The Father allows a moment of profound gravity to fill the space. The scope of the inheritance, the kingdom, the authority, the crown of thorns hangs in the air, both exhilarating and terrifying. He sees the question in his child's eyes, the unspoken but overwhelming query. How? How can I possibly bear such a weight? How do I become the person who can do this? He offers a gentle, understanding smile, a smile that acknowledges the immensity of the task ahead. You feel it, don't you? The sheer scale of it all. It feels impossible, like being asked to drink the ocean with a teaspoon. That feeling is good. It is honest. It proves you understand the gravity of what we are discussing. If this calling felt easy or manageable, it would not be from God. The feeling of impossibility is the prerequisite for dependency, and dependency is the very lifeline of the kingdom. You now see the shape of your inheritance. You understand the what, but you are right to ask how. A map is useless without the knowledge of how to read it. A blueprint for a cathedral is just ink on paper to a man who has never learned to build. Understanding the destination is revelation. Learning how to walk the path is transformation. This is where the soaring poetry of destiny meets the dusty, unglamorous prose of daily life. This is the part of the journey that has no audience, no applause, and yet is the most critical part of all. We must now speak of the rigorous, the practical, and the life-altering art of spiritual stewardship. Think of it this way: the anointing, the authority, the calling that is a powerful, high-performance engine. But an engine, no matter how powerful, requires fuel, maintenance, and a skilled driver. Stewardship is the art of maintaining that engine. It is the daily, unseen work that sustains the public manifestation of power. Many want the horsepower. Few are willing to do the maintenance. This is where we begin the real work. First, we must address the primary domain of your stewardship, the stewardship of your mind. Your mind is a garden. For years, as we have discussed, the assassins of the enemy have had free rein in this garden. They have sown weeds of fear, planted thorny bushes of shame, and littered the soil with the rocks of past traumas and bitter memories. The ground has become hard, compacted, and hostile to new life. Your first and most fundamental act as an heir is to reclaim this territory. You must become the master gardener of your own mind. This is not a passive activity. It is active, sometimes brutal work. It begins with the discipline of uprooting. You must learn to become a ruthless observer of your own thoughts. You must stand guard at the gate of your mind and interrogate every thought that seeks entry. When a thought comes, you must ask it, who sent you? What is your origin? Do you align with the truth of who the King says I am? For example, when the familiar, slimy thought appears, you are not good enough, you are an imposter, you will eventually be found out. The old, you would have let it in. You would have let it plant itself, water it with agreement, and watch it grow into a tree of anxiety. The steward, the heir, does not. You grab that thought by the root. You hold it up to the light, and you speak the truth to it. You are a lie from the pit of hell. You are an echo of the usurper's propaganda. The truth is, my worth is not based on my performance. It is sealed by my identity as a chosen child of the King. I am not an imposter. I am an ambassador. You have no legal right to this ground. Now get out, and you pull it out, violently. When the weed of fear for the future sprouts, what if this fails? What if you lose everything? What if you make a fool of yourself? You do not entertain it. You uproot it. You declare, my future is not in the hands of chance, but in the hands of a good and sovereign God. He who called me is faithful. He is the author and the perfecter of my faith. I will not partner with fear. I choose to partner with faith. This is daily, hourly work. The weeds will try to grow back. The seeds are everywhere in the world's atmosphere. But as you become a more ruthless gardener, you will begin to recognize the weeds more quickly, and uprooting them will become second nature. But uprooting is only half the battle. It leaves empty ground, and nature abhors a vacuum. If you do not intentionally plant something new, the weeds will simply reclaim the territory. This brings us to the discipline of sowing. You must actively, relentlessly, and intentionally plant the seeds of truth in the reclaimed soil of your mind. How? You saturate yourself. You change your informational diet. You cannot expect to cultivate a garden of peace while irrigating it with the polluted wastewater of cable news, cynical social media feeds, and gossip. You must curate your inputs with the discernment of a museum curator, choosing what to hang on the walls. What you read, what you watch, what you listen to, does it align with the kingdom? Does it produce the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? Or does it produce the fruit of the usurper's kingdom: anxiety, outrage, envy, division, and despair? The most powerful form of sowing is the practice of meditation, not the Eastern style of emptying the mind, but the Hebraic style of filling it. You take a single powerful promise from God, a single verse of Scripture, a single truth about your identity, and you chew on it, you repeat it, you turn it over and over in your mind. You ask questions of it. You speak it out loud until it drops from the cold, intellectual region of your head into the warm, fertile soil of your heart. You might take the truth, "I am the beloved of God," and spend an entire day returning your thoughts to it every time they wander. What does it feel like to be beloved? How would a beloved person walk, talk, and make decisions? This practice slowly, powerfully rewrites the very code of your subconscious mind. I remember a time when the weed of a deep-seated poverty mindset had a stranglehold on my own garden. I grew up with scarcity, and even after I found success, I was haunted by a fear that it would all be taken away. I made decisions from a place of fear, not faith. I couldn't be truly generous. It was a miserable, anxious existence. For more than a year, my daily work was to uproot every thought of lack and to intentionally sow the truth of God as my Jehovah Jireh, my provider. I meditated on scriptures about His provision. I gave money away even when it scared me, as an act of faith. It was a long, slow, arduous process. There was no lightning bolt. But one day, I realized the constant, low-grade anxiety was gone. The garden of my mind had begun to produce the fruit of peace and trust. It is hard work, but it is the work that matters most. Second, we must speak of the stewardship of your heart. If your mind is the garden, your heart is the wellspring from which the entire garden is irrigated. The scriptures say, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." This is not a suggestion, it is a command for the warrior. Air. How do you guard this well? The primary discipline is the discipline of forgiveness. Unforgiveness is the most potent poison you can allow into your own well. It is a toxic sludge of bitterness, resentment, and self-pity that contaminates every part of your life. And here is the great deception of the usurper. He convinces you that your unforgiveness is a weapon you are wielding against the person who hurt you. This is a lie. The person who hurt you is most likely living their life, while you are the one drinking the poison every single day. Forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. It is the act of cleaning your own well. It is not a feeling. You will almost never feel like forgiving someone who has deeply wounded you. Forgiveness is a legal act, a decision of your will. It is you standing before God and saying, "I recognize that this person owes me a debt. They owe me an apology, a restitution, a pound of flesh. But because I have been forgiven an infinite debt by you, I choose, as an act of my will, to cancel their debt. I release them from my judgment. I hand them over to you, the only righteous judge, and I refuse to be their jailer any longer." You may have to do this 100 times a day for the same offense. Every time the memory brings the pain, You perform the legal act again. I have already forgiven them. I release them. This discipline keeps the wellspring of your heart clear and clean, able to receive and transmit the living water of God's Spirit. The second discipline for the heart is the discipline of communion, or what the old saints called the secret place. This is the practice that keeps your well from running dry. It is the daily, scheduled, protected time of connection with the King. This is the non-negotiable appointment in the calendar of the air. This is not a religious duty to be checked off a list. It is the essential business meeting of the kingdom. It is where you get your marching orders for the day. It is where you align your will, receive your strength, and have your spirit recalibrated. I know how the world wars against this. The moment you decide to set aside time for this, 100 urgent things will appear. The phone will ring, the emails will pile up. The voice of the usurper will whisper, "You're too busy for this today. You can do it later." He fears this meeting more than anything else, because he knows that an heir who is deeply connected to their king is invincible. Find your time and place, and guard it with your life. For me, it has always been the early morning, before the world has a chance to shout at me. For you, it might be different, but be consistent. Show up, and be honest. Do not come into this place with a performance. If you are angry, tell him you are angry. If you are full of doubt, pour out your doubt. If you are exhausted, just be still and let him restore you. It is a relationship, not a ritual. This is where you draw the living water that will sustain you and flow through you to your kingdom. I learned this the hard way. There was a season where the work of my ministry became so demanding that I began to neglect my secret place. I convinced myself it was for a good cause. But soon the well began to dry up. My public work became strained, joyless. I was irritable. I was making decisions out of my own wisdom, and they were poor ones. I was a river trying to flow without being connected to the mountain spring. I had to repent, to cancel my important meetings, and return to the one meeting that truly mattered. Slowly, painstakingly, the flow was restored. Do not learn this lesson the way I did. Guard your well. Finally, we must touch upon the stewardship of your time and energy. This is the practical currency of your life. The usurper's kingdom runs on the fuel of frantic, anxious, burnout-inducing activity. The kingdom of God operates on a divine rhythm of focused work and deep rest. You must learn this rhythm. As an heir, you no longer see time as merely chronos. You must learn to live with an awareness of Kairos. This means cultivating a sensitivity to the Holy Spirit's nudges. That divine interruption, the person who stops you in the hallway, the unexpected phone call, the sudden thought to pray for someone is not an inconvenience to your schedule. It is very often the primary assignment of your day. You must learn to hold your own plans loosely, to make room for God's Kairos appointments. And a critical part of this rhythm is the discipline of rest or Sabbath. In our work-obsessed culture, this is perhaps the most defiant act of faith. To take a full day to cease from all your work, all your striving, all your planning, it is an act of spiritual warfare. It is a declaration that the King is the one who builds the kingdom, not your own frantic effort. It is a statement of profound trust that He is in control of your provision and your success. Sabbath is not just not working. It is the intentional practice of delight. It is a day to enjoy God, to enjoy His creation, to enjoy your family, to do the things that fill your soul. It is not laziness. It is strategic recharging. A bow that is always strung will lose its power. An heir who does not practice deep, trusting rest will eventually burn out and become ineffective. These disciplines, the stewardship of your mind, your heart, and your time, are not a list of rules to earn God's favor. You already have His favor. This is not about becoming worthy. You are already worthy. This is the practical, gritty, day in and day out work of a king learning how to rule his own inner world so that he can be trusted to rule in the outer world. This is how you build the internal character that can sustain the weight of the external calling. This is the forging of the king. But a king is not a king for his own sake. He does not build his character just for self-improvement. He reigns for his people. Now that you understand the rigorous discipline required to steward your inner world, we must finally turn our gaze completely outward. We must speak of your mission, your direct engagement with the world you are called to change, and the legacy of light you are destined to leave in the darkness. We must speak of the final, glorious act, the art of releasing your kingdom. The room seems to hold its breath. The journey through the inner world has been completed. The past has been reframed. The calling has been defined. The disciplines of stewardship have been laid bare. The father looks at his child, and his gaze is no longer just that of a teacher or a mentor. It is the look of a sovereign sending forth his most trusted ambassador, the look of a general giving the final briefing to his elite soldier before the most important mission of their life. There is pride, there is love, and there is a profound and holy expectation. We have journeyed far tonight, you and I. We have walked back through the battlefields of your past and seen the hand of a divine strategist in every skirmish. We have stood on the mountaintop and surveyed the breathtaking landscape of your calling, the kingdom, the authority, and the heavy, beautiful crown of thorns. We have descended into the quiet, dusty workshop of the soul and examined the daily, rigorous disciplines required to steward such a high calling. You have been shown the why, the what, and the how of your inner world. But all of it, every revelation, every painful lesson, every quiet hour of communion has been for this. Preparation is not the destination. The forging of the king's character is not for his own self-improvement. A lamp is not lit to be hidden under a bushel. A sword is not forged to be hung on a wall as a piece of art. It is forged for engagement. All of your life up to this point has been the sharpening of the blade in secret. Now, we must speak of how to wield it in the world. We must turn our gaze completely outward. We must speak of your mission, your direct engagement with the very darkness you are called to displace, and the legacy of light you are destined to leave behind when your time here is done. We must speak of the final, glorious, and terrifying act, the art of releasing your kingdom. Let us first be clear about the nature of your mission. The world thinks of a mission as a set of goals to be achieved, a strategic plan to be executed, a checklist of accomplishments. This is a hopelessly inadequate definition. Your mission is not a list of tasks. Your mission is the inevitable, organic, and powerful overflow of your stewarded inner life. It is the external expression of your internal reality. Simply put, your mission is not what you do. It is who you are, made visible. The sun does not try to shine. It shines because it is its nature. A river does not work to flow. It flows because it is its nature to be a conduit from the mountain to the sea. In the same way, an heir who is faithfully stewarding their mind, heart, and time does not have to search for their mission. Their mission will begin to emanate from them as naturally as warmth from a fire. Your primary task, therefore, is not to figure out your grand mission. It is to become so deeply aligned with the King that you learn to recognize what he is already doing in the world around you. This is the great secret of effective kingdom work. We are not called to be initiators. We are called to be responders. We are not called to start our own projects and then beg God to bless them. We are called to open our spiritual eyes, see where the King is already at work, and then co-sign on his project with our lives, our gifts, and our resources. It is a shift from anxious striving to sensitive participation. It removes the crushing burden of having to invent your purpose from scratch and replaces it with the joyful adventure of discovering your part in his grand, unfolding story. So, how do you see where he is at work? How do you find your specific assignment? First, look for the holy pain. Pay attention to the brokenness in the world that grieves your spirit on a level that feels personal. What are the news headlines that don't just anger you but wound you? What is the specific flavor of human suffering that you cannot turn away from? Is it child trafficking? Is it racial injustice? Is it the loneliness of the elderly? Is it the destruction of the natural world? That deep, righteous anger, that profound grief, that is not a weakness, that is very often the resonance of your spirit with a territory you have been anointed to reclaim. Your assignment is often hidden in the heart of what breaks your heart. Second, listen for the spiritual itch. This is the recurring thought, the persistent nudge, the idea you can't shake. It's the face of that one person at work you can't stop thinking about praying for. It's the problem in your community that keeps you awake at night, brainstorming solutions. It's the quiet, persistent whisper that says, someone should do something about this, which, after months of repetition, you begin to realize is actually the Spirit saying, you are that someone. The Holy Spirit is not a God of confusion. He is a God of gentle, persistent invitation. Pay attention to the recurring themes He brings to your mind. That is often Him highlighting your next patch of the garden. And third, embrace the power of the small next step. Your lifelong mission will not arrive as a detailed multi-page proposal in your inbox. It will almost always arrive as a single, small, often illogical, next step instruction. Call that friend you haven't spoken to in years. Volunteer at that homeless shelter for one afternoon. Write down that one idea that keeps nagging you. Forgive that person, right now. It is in the simple act of obedience to the small, unimpressive instruction that the door to the larger mission is unlocked. The enemy would have you believe that small acts are insignificant. That is a lie. In the kingdom of God, your faithfulness in the seemingly small thing is the interview for the greater responsibility. I learned this truth through great difficulty. For years, I believed my mission was to build a great, visible edifice for God. I chased platforms, I sought influence, I prayed for the big break, and I was met with silence and frustration. It was only when I surrendered that grand vision and started listening for the small whispers that my true mission began. It started with a nudge to visit an old, forgotten mentor in a nursing home. That visit led to a conversation. That conversation sparked an idea. That idea led to the formation of a small group of men who met in my basement. And that small group, over decades of faithful, unseen work, has had more impact and produced more lasting fruit than any grand organization I ever dreamed of. My mission was not the edifice, it was the people. I had to learn that God's greatest works are often hidden in the places human ambition scorns to look. As you step out on this mission, you will inevitably come into direct engagement with the darkness you are called to displace. Let us be clear about the rules of this engagement. This is not a battle of flesh and blood. Your fight is never with people. People are the territory, the prize to be won, the captives to be liberated. Your fight is with the spiritual principalities, the ancient, intelligent systems of deception, the strongholds of the usurper that keep people in bondage. You are not a soldier sent to destroy the populace. You are a liberator sent to dismantle a prison. Therefore, your weapons must be of a different nature. The usurper's kingdom is built on fear, power, and death. You cannot defeat it using its own weapons. To fight with anger, with manipulation, with condemnation, is to become the very thing you are fighting against. The kingdom of heaven advances with a completely different arsenal. Your primary weapon is unconditional, sacrificial love. This is the nuclear bomb of the spiritual world. It is the one force the kingdom of darkness has no defense against. Hatred cannot comprehend it. Cynicism cannot corrode it. Violence shatters against it. It is the love that serves its enemies, that prays for its persecutors, that blesses those who curse it. This love is not a soft, sentimental feeling. It is a fierce, militant, and strategic force. It is the light that is so bright that darkness simply cannot occupy the same space. You do not fight the darkness, you turn on the light. Your second weapon is radical, unflinching truth. The entire kingdom of darkness is a phantom empire built on a foundation of lies. The lie that God is not good, the lie that you are worthless, the lie that sin is freedom, the lie that power is happiness. Your mission is to become a truth teller. But you must speak this truth, not with the arrogance of a debater trying to win an argument, but with the compassion of a doctor administering a life-saving antidote. You speak to liberate, not to dominate. Your third weapon is militant, persistent hope. Hope, in the kingdom, is not wishful thinking. It is the confident, settled expectation of a good future, based not on circumstances, but on the character of the king. To maintain a posture of hope in a world drowning in despair is a powerful act of spiritual warfare. It is a prophetic declaration that the usurper's reign is temporary and his defeat is certain. And finally, your fourth weapon is joy. This may be the most confusing weapon of all to the enemy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. A person who is filled with a deep, unshakable, non-circumstantial joy is utterly baffling to a kingdom built on anxiety and fear. Your peace becomes a provocation. Your contentment becomes a protest. Your laughter in the face of adversity is a sound that sends shockwaves through the realm of shadows. This is the way of the warrior heir. You engage the world not with the frantic, angry energy of a protester, but with the calm, potent authority of a king. You carry a calm fire, a deep and abiding peace in your spirit, coupled with a burning, passionate fire for justice, truth, and redemption. You will be the calmest person in every storm, and that very calmness will be the source of your greatest power. This brings us to the end, my child. It brings us to the question of legacy. When your story on this earth is over, what will remain? A true kingdom legacy is not measured in the monuments you build, but in the movements you ignite in the hearts of others. It is not about the books you write, but about the people who become living epistles of God's grace because they knew you. It is not your name on a building that matters, but your name whispered in the grateful prayers of those whose lives you touched. Your true legacy will be found in the health of the trees that grow from the seeds you planted in the gardens of others. It will be the people who found their own calling because you had the courage to walk in yours. It will be the chains of generational dysfunction that were broken because you chose to forgive. It will be the children and grandchildren who walk in a freedom you fought for. This is a legacy that echoes in eternity. You are not just living for yourself. You are a turning point in your lineage. You are a restorer of the breach. And so, my beloved child, the hour is upon you. The theory is done. The classroom is dismissed. The training ground is behind you. Before you lies the world, your kingdom, your assignment, your glorious and difficult mission. Do not be afraid. You have been prepared for this from the foundation of the world. Everything you need, you already possess within you, placed there by the King himself. Go and be who you are. Go and love the world with the fierce and tender heart of the one who sent you. Go and steward your authority with humility and courage. The training is over. Your commission has begun. Now go and release your kingdom.